Thank you very much indeed. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. This is my first conference back as leader of UKIP at a time when absolutely everything we have stood for and fought for is now at the centre of the national debate. Nobody can say anything other that UKIP now is a mainstream British political party. Now so hidebound by the European Union and political correctness that they simply refuse to stand up for the nation. Their broken promises and failure to deal with real issues has led to an almost total breakdown in faith and trust in politics in this country. We are being led by a group of college kids with no experience of the real world. And that loss of faith certainly applies to the Liberal Democrats. But quite why they're named that way is a mystery to me. They seem to support bans on everything, do everything they can to stop us having referendums on key issues. They are neither liberal nor democratic. They have over the last few years been a growing receptacle for votes for people who said a plague on both your houses. But it's different now, because they're in government. And now we've found out what they're really like. The charming Vince Cable must be the first ever business secretary that hates private enterprise and hates business. We have the environment secretary, the ever-ambitious Christopher who has decided he's going to cover the whole of the United Kingdom in tens of thousands of expensive, wasteful, ghastly, ugly wind turbines, and we don't want them. Of course, there's the issue of tuition fees as well, isn't there? I think that faith and trust in the Liberal Democrats has since last year snapped like an elastic band. And I'm very pleased to say that in recent polls in the north of England, in London, and amongst 18 to 24-year-olds across this country, UKIP is now consistently beginning to beat the Liberal Democrats in poll after poll. The loss of faith in Labour hasn't, in my view, been recovered. Years of broken promises, disastrous public finances. Have you seen the price of gold, Gordon? And of course a series of endless foreign wars. But perhaps worse than that has been the betrayal of working class people in this country by Labour by pursuing an open door immigration policy depriving British workers. Is that since 2004, as an excuse for opening the doors to the whole of Eastern Europe, the Labour Party began the myth that all British workers are useless, lazy, can't be bothered, and are not worth employing. Fancy saying that about your own population to open up the door to somebody else. I think it's a mistake. Yes, of course, we know we do have some people living on benefit, dealing in a few drugs on the side, going out on the odd right. Yes, we've got social problems, but there are huge numbers of good, ordinary, decent people in this country that want to work, that want to obey the law. They've been denied from doing it, and I would that now UKIP is the champion for those people and not the Labour Party. But the biggest loss of faith in British politics has only just begun. Slowly but surely, the myth that the Conservatives are better than the other lot, the myth that the Conservatives will stand up for the nation, is beginning to unravel. For 13 years, the Conservatives were in opposition, and that, of course, is most of the time that this party has actually been in existence. And for years people said, Nigel, I agree with you, but we have to vote Conservative because we want to get Labour out. And they used to tell me, you'll be surprised, they said, just you wait till David gets in. Well, David is in, isn't he? And if you voted Conservative, believing that he would keep his promise, his cast-iron guarantee to give you a referendum on our relationship with the European Union, well, you've been let down, haven't you? If you voted Conservative, believing that he would cut immigration from hundreds of thousands a year to tens of thousands a year, you can see that in year one, the figures were up by 21%. You've been let down. And if you voted for David Cameron, believing that he was going to get rid of European human rights legislation, that somehow, as it made him feel sick to the bottom of his stomach, that prisoners should get the vote, that he was going to do something about it, well, you've been let down like a cheap pair of braces. And the same goes for law and order. The same goes for the repeal of the hunting ban. The same goes for preserving and protecting the green belt. And the same most certainly goes for the absolutely despicable way this government has cut back on our armed forces. Some will say, but it's all because he's trapped in a coalition. But you only have to listen to Ken Clarke on crime, or the reworked Foreign Secretary William Hague on foreign policy, or Andrew Mitchell on the foreign aid contribution, to realise one stark fact. The Conservatives are part of the problem and not the solution. And they get their votes. They get their votes. The Conservatives get their votes by promising to stand up to the nation, and the truth is they never really mean it in the first place. What they are engaged in is an exercise in mass deception, and they're being rumbled. If you're a patriotic, Eurosceptic Conservative voter under David Cameron, your party has now ceased to exist. If you want to vote for what you believe in, you must come and vote UKIP. It's as simple as that. Can I just remind, maybe not UKIP voters, but can I just remind those of the Labour, Liberal Democrat, and perhaps particularly today in the Conservative Party, can I just remind people what the UKIP policy on the European Union is? We seek an amicable divorce from the political European Union and its replacement with a genuine free trade agreement, which is what we thought we'd signed up for in the first place. And let's be encouraged that this is not just happening here, it is happening right across Northern Europe. That whole political class are under attack for such stupidities as the euro and the illegalities of the bailouts. And I must say, I have a feeling that the days of my good old friend Herman Van Rompuy may be over. You know, he didn't send me a Christmas card, it's true. Yeah, no, at least we know who he is now, though, don't we? I am delighted that we have here supporting us today Nicolas dupont, we've got Barry Madlena and Timo Soini from Finland, and nobody has done more to rock the establishment not just in his own country, not just in his own capital in Helsinki, but in the corridors of Brussels as well. Timo, they're terrified of you. You've got to make it right. But commentators will be making a mistake if they think the growth in all these political movements is purely a protest against what's going on now. It is far deeper, far more genuine than that. What is actually happening is all these people on this platform are setting out positive alternatives, are looking for a new kind of politics. And right at the heart of that politics is, whilst we want to be friends and neighbours, whilst we want to trade with each other, we insist, all of us on this platform, that the best thing we can do in our own countries is to put the interests of our nations and our nations' peoples first. That is the move. Now, I am not saying that the day we leave the European Union, that'll be a good party, won't it? But I am not saying that the day we leave the European Union, all our problems will be solved. They won't. We've got some desperate problems in this country, and it is now up to us as a party to paint a vision of how an independent Britain could and should be run. It's important we let people know that we will campaign and fight to end mass, uncontrolled immigration into this country. It is vital that people understand that UKIP is the only party that believes in reintroducing selective education in this country to make sure that the brightest children from the poorest backgrounds get the best possible education and start at life. It is important that people understand that when we say, if we had the opportunity to cut back on the quangos and the quangocrats, we wouldn't just say it, we'd actually do it. It's important people know these things. And it's important people know that we're the one party that wants to get government off our backs. We're grown-ups and we should be treated as such. We're the only proper libertarian party in this country. We've got to march government. But I think we have to recognise that within our own political union, the United Kingdom, that one or two things have changed in the last decade. Many of us were nervous of devolution for Scotland and Wales, and were worried that it might lead to the breakup of the Union. But none of us could have predicted exactly how this would play out. Now, I put it to you that the devolution genie is very firmly out of the bottle, and it's not going to be put back. But it's created a problem. Not in Scotland or Wales particularly, or Northern Ireland. No, it's created a problem in England. Because the English feel put upon. The English think it's unfair that Scottish and Welsh members of Parliament can vote on English-only legislation, but they can have no say in Scotland or Wales. But it's more than that. It's more than just the West Lothian question. I think there is a growing feeling in England, and certainly I feel it and share it, there is a growing feeling that somehow our leaders are ashamed of the very word England. We are discouraged from describing ourselves as English. Our leaders seem to reel in horror at the idea of the cross of St George. And I think that we need to do something to plug that gap. The English need and deserve equality with our other partners in this union, and it's for that reason that yesterday the National Executive of this party discussed a change, a shift in policy, and we are now going to campaign for the English to have their own parliament, just like the Welsh and the Scots. And that actually, this is the only way of saving the Union. Because if we carry on with this level of English resentment over the voting system,
only the amount of money that goes north of the border. If we continue with this, it'll be the English that end the Union by voting to get rid of Scotland and not Alex Salmon doing it to us. Let's save the Union and let's give the English people the self-respect and pride that they so desperately need and deserve. When I first became leader of this party back in September 2006, albeit with a short intermission, as you know, for a year or so when I took up alternative pursuits. But when I took over this party, we were, on the general election opinion poll ratings, just below 1%. On the Angus Reid poll that was put out 2 days ago, we are now on 7%. Just look at the fact that in the English local elections this year, we managed to get 1/3 votes in the seats in which we stood. That meant that as many people were turning out to vote for us in local elections as had turned out to vote for us in the previous European election success of 2009. This party is on the increase. Our excellent candidate, Jane Collins, showed that at Barnsley. And we have a young generation that are coming to us. There was a recent YouGov poll in the West Country that put us on 14% amongst 18 to 24-year-olds. Our progress is good, solid and steady. We are on the cusp, I believe. I'm on the cusp of really advancing up those polls, and I think the bulk of that support is going to come from Conservative voters in this country who have simply given up on I need to say Gordon Brown. It's that gold price, you know, it's upsetting. There are millions of people out there who believed in David Cameron, and they now know, frankly, he wasn't telling the truth. There is a massive open door for this party. We have every chance to step through it into a new, bigger, brighter future for UKIP and for UKIP policies. And I must say that I consider myself extremely lucky. Lucky to be physically and mentally well enough after that horrific incident to be able to come back and take on this job of leading this great party once again. I'm back at the helm, and you can rest assured that I believe in the UKIP cause more than I ever did before. Please help me.
press, even if the press don't like me particularly, I know a lot of the press don't, but I would argue that when they actually look at these things, they will see just a minute something wrong.
I try not to be too rude. Yeah. I find it pretty easy not to be too rude, actually.
To my beautiful ladies and sit down.
Yeah, see what you can do. I don't have a branch. But hasn't this already happened? I thought that had already been done.
People pop out there and go and join the union.
This is more than just a protest. A growing number of activities originate from or are linked to this site and involve.
What did you think of Nigel's speech? Did you enjoy that?
So good morning.
Good morning.
You're in charge of the Cards on the Table project, is that right?
I am. My name is Trevor Coleman. I'm a member of the European Parliament on behalf of the UK Independence Party.
So what does it consist of, this project?
This website allows us to go and speak to interested parties and groups throughout the southwest of England. That's where I'm based. What we found is that if we go along to tell people about the European Union, they don't want to hear from a political party. They want to hear the facts. They don't want to hear opinions, and they don't want to hear some kind of promotion of a political party or a politician. They want to hear the facts. So this is a non-political website, or political party website. It doesn't promote a party or an individual. It doesn't promote me. It just presents the facts. It tells people in Britain where we are and why we are in the European Union. And the amazing thing about it is very little is known in this country about our membership of the EU because it's been hidden from us by our own politicians.
Can you give us an example regarding the cost of the European Union to the United Kingdom?
Well, the cost to the United Kingdom of membership of the EU has never really been defined by our own politicians. But just to give you some idea of the deception, there have been 6 treaties where power has been transferred from Westminster to Brussels. Not once have any of those treaties appeared on any party manifesto, nor have they been put to the people in a referendum. The people are totally unaware of the significance of each of these treaties and the fact that these massive transfers of governance have taken place. This website seeks to redress that. And already we found in the first 6 months that people are amazed at what has happened to this country and are getting very angry. And that's what my job is, to tell them what's going on, for them to decide whether they want to be part of this project or not.
Why is it called Cards on the Table?
It's called Cards on the Table because we're absolutely honest about things. Anything for or against the EU, we just tell the whole story.
What could you tell us about the good sides of the EU?
From my experience, and bearing in mind that the price we pay is that we've lost the ability to govern ourselves, bear in mind that's the price. There is nothing to be gained from Britain being in the European Union.
You said good things and bad things about the EU.
What we do is we quote those people who support the European project as well as quoting those people who don't.
So you find nothing good in the EU?
You're asking me? I find nothing good in it at all. I think it's a corrupt, undemocratic setup, and the quicker we're out of it, the better. But I don't tell that to people. I refrain from giving my opinions. I tell them this is how it is. You decide whether it's good or bad.
For example, in France, we have liberalization of some markets, which were, for example, now we have buses which can join some towns, whereas before it was impossible because of the monopoly of the train, in France. So that's thanks to the EU. Is there nothing equivalent in the UK?
Even if there are beneficial gains, and there are very few, if any, the price we're paying is too much. We no longer govern ourselves. That's a huge price to pay. Democracy has gone out the window, and the people have never been asked, do they want this? If the people were asked, do you want to be part of this project, bearing in mind that they know all the details for or against, and if the people voted yes, then fine, I could get my golf handicap down instead of doing this.
Maybe last question, have the powers of the Queen been transferred to the EU in some way?
The Queen is a constitutional monarch, and part of the duties of the Queen is to protect this nation and this country. The Queen has given her consent, her royal assent, to all of the 6 treaties. By her own hand, she's diminished her position, I believe.
So is UKIP a party against the Queen?
Not a bit. I actually believe in a strong constitutional monarchy. It is a safeguard for the people. And were we to leave the European Union, and we will, having left it, I would strengthen the monarchy so that they can, in fact, be a protector of the people.
Thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.
Good morning, Colin.
Good morning.
So,
pleasure to meet you.
You're participating in this UKIP conference.
Yes, I'm a UKIP party member.
Can you tell us why you joined this party?
Well, I first campaigned for UKIP when I was 14 and joined when I was 16. I believe in freedom, democracy and capitalism, individual liberty for Europe and for this country. I believe in national independence, and I feel that UKIP is the party which, out of all the major parties, most represents it.
And how old are you now?
16.
16?
Still,
okay.
Yes.
In France, we're a less capitalist country, as you know, than in...
yes, indeed. Collectivism.
Yes, and...
of the type of Nicolas Sarkozy.
Do you think he's collectivist?
Yes, I think he is an extremely bad president. Okay. He has abused his office. He has started foreign wars in Libya, illegal invasions.
That's right.
It's like Algeria in the 60s, an act of aggression and imperialism. And I oppose any form of foreign wars.
Now, regarding capitalism, some say in France that the European Union has forced France into more capitalism. So isn't that good, a bit?
No, it isn't, because the European Union is in fact not at all pro-capitalist. The European Union believes in stock market regulation, in a Tobin tax. I mean, that was Angela Merkel's recent thing, or something rather similar to that. State-run finance is fiat currency. We must reject it. The European Union exists only to bring even more state regulation. A larger state is always a bigger state, and that is why the European Union is so threatening. There is already the debt fund, the European debt fund, which is currently being proposed. It would have an unlimited start capital. Now, if that's not government-run economics, then what is? Of course, there is one person who will be debt-free, the person running this debt fund, but not the countries of Europe.
Now, maybe last question. I've seen mostly, I wouldn't say elder people, but not too many youngsters like you. How do you feel about that?
Well, we are delighted.
Absolutely,
yes. We are delighted that this movement attracts a very large number of older people. It is excellent. Their contribution to the party is admirable. However, we still have some recruiting to do because, of course, the education system is run by people who believe in liberalism, multiculturalism, and other already otherwise rejected doctrines. And as long as you have an education system run by these people, you will have very limited young people's support for UKIP. As people become more mature of all creeds and colours, they will join UKIP.
Can we move a bit from this thing?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe a last question.
Our time will come.
How do you explain that you escaped from this education?
I don't think I escaped from it. I simply believe that I ought to make up my own mind rationally, without any hatred, without any indoctrination, and in that way I read Ludwig von Mises and Hayek, the leading economists. I am a UKIP member not for hatred of immigrants, but for economic reasons. And it is out of that conviction that my membership in UKIP comes.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
So good morning. You're a member of the PVV and you represented this party this morning. Could you summarize your speech this morning? You arrived after.
Yes, my speech was about losing our sovereignty to Brussels and about the euro crisis, because the Dutch are fed up with paying for the Greek. So we are in a big crisis, and we want to have our legislative powers back to where it belongs, to The Hague, to our national parliaments.
One of the main themes of the PVV is Islam. Did you talk about Islam at all this morning?
Yes, I talked about we were successfully in holding down more Islamization in the Netherlands, and we had measures against mass immigration, because we have had a lot of immigrants in the Netherlands, causing also a lot of problems in the Netherlands. So we were successful in that in this government.
What was the reaction in the room?
A standing ovation.
Standing ovation, yes, it was.
Other question: is your presence here today a sign of a future alliance between UKIP and PVV?
We think it's very important that we have international cooperation between all other countries with the same problems. Europe is not the solution to problems, but it's the cause of problems, and more people in Europe know that right now. So yes, it's very important that the Dutch see that the Finns and the British all have the same problems and all are paying for this euro crisis. So yes, I think it's very important to work together, and the UKIP, for me, are the best English colleagues to work together with.
Okay, and maybe last question. On the 3rd of September, we saw a common meeting with Geert Wilders, your leader, Oscar Freisinger of the UDC, and René Stadtkiewicz of the Freiheit, the Freedom Party in Germany. Do you imagine in a few months or years the same meeting with all the leaders of the sovereign parties in the same room, having the same meeting, and any coalition maybe?
Well, I would really hope so. In Germany, there's not really a Eurosceptic movement. So the Freiheit could be the one who will fill up the gap. And it's very important that, of course, 80 million Germans will also have this vote. And international cooperation is very important. So we would like to cooperate with as many countries as possible. But we need allies. And UKIP is a great ally, as the true Finns and the Danish Folk Party, which we also work together with.
And the French Nicolas Dupont, who came also, will speak at 2 p.m. So do you have any contact with him?
Yes, I met him today, and he is a candidate for the France presidency, I heard. I didn't know him, but I hope he's very successful, and I wish him good luck. And of course also the French need a good, sound party to stop more Europeanization.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tavillier.
You're welcome.
Alors bonjour Nicolas Dupont-Aignan.
Bonjour.
Donc on est ici à Eastbourne, c'est dans la lointaine banlieue de Londres. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous expliquer ce que vous y faites?
J'ai été invité par Nigel Farage, qui est le leader de UKIP Party, qui est le parti pour l'indépendance de la Grande-Bretagne. Voilà, et nous avons des liens entre Debout la République et ce parti, parce qu'il est très important de montrer aux Européens que nous ne sommes pas là pour simplement critiquer un système. Nous sommes là pour reconstruire un système, c'est-à-dire une Europe des coopérations entre nations libres. C'est ça l'enjeu. Et ce matin, j'écoutais le leader finlandais, le leader hollandais, j'écoutais Nigel Farage. C'est la même problématique dans chacune des nations européennes. C'est la même problématique. Une problématique de démocratie, de liberté et de prospérité. C'est ça l'enjeu. Voilà pourquoi je suis ici.
Avec des nuances nationales, évidemment.
Bien sûr, mais s'il n'y avait pas de nuances nationales, ça voudrait dire qu'il n'y a pas de nation. Je ne suis pas toujours d'accord avec ce que propose Farage sur le plan intérieur, mais je n'ai pas à m'en occuper de ce qu'il propose. Justement, l'Angleterre est un pays libre qui veut le redevenir, et la France est un pays qui n'est plus du tout libre et qui veut totalement le redevenir.
Alors est-ce que votre présence ici et la présence des autres représentants des partis signifie qu'il va y avoir une coalition à un moment ou à un autre?
Une coordination, parce qu'une coalition, vous parlez là comme les supranationaux. Une coordination pour retrouver notre liberté nationale et pour ensuite travailler ensemble sous forme de coopération de projets et à géométrie variable. On a fait Airbus sans la Commission et sans l'euro. On a fait Ariane sans la Commission et sans l'euro. On doit multiplier ces liens et ces projets entre nous, mais à géométrie variable, à 2, 3, 4, 5 pays. et arrêter cette bureaucratie bruxelloise qui est en train de nous tuer à petit feu.
Alors est-ce qu'aujourd'hui il y a déjà des projets qui sont prévus?
Oui, il y a des projets, on travaille ensemble, il y aura des plateformes communes, il y aura des propositions bien sûr. Mais vous savez, quand vous lisez les propositions de chacun de ces partis, vous voyez qu'elles sont quasiment identiques. Ils veulent rendre le pouvoir à leur peuple. Et puis après, chacun voguera sur la mer naturellement et en travaillant ensemble.
Alors, autre question, les partis qui sont là aujourd'hui et qui vont s'exprimer aussi cet après-midi, est-ce que ça veut dire qu'ils sont proches de DLR? Par exemple, les partis des vrais Finlandais, est-ce que vous avez des contacts avec eux? Ou le PVV de Geert Wilders?
On a des contacts, on n'est pas d'accord sur tout. Encore une fois, ne me demandez pas d'être d'accord avec eux, sur le plan intérieur. En revanche, nous avons le même combat pour la liberté de nos nations. Et à ce titre, nous devons échanger nos expériences, travailler davantage ensemble. Voilà.
Est-ce qu'ils vont vous apporter leur soutien pour l'élection présidentielle?
Mais je ne souhaite pas obligatoirement d'ailleurs, parce que c'est pas l'enjeu. Ils n'ont pas à se mêler des affaires de la France, que je sache. Je suis assez grand. Voilà, je suis attaché à la souveraineté de mon pays, à la liberté de mon peuple. Donc c'est pas pour demander à des partenaires extérieurs de faire ce que font les partenaires de l'UMP ou du Parti Socialiste. Moi je veux pas ça. En revanche, on peut travailler ensemble pour libérer nos pays et nos peuples.
Alors, vous êtes gaulliste.
Oui.
De Gaulle a eu des relations ambivalentes avec l'Angleterre entre 1940 et après 58, c'était pas tout à fait la même chose, mais il restait toujours des frictions. Vous, comment est-ce que vous voyez les choses aujourd'hui?
Mais non, mais De Gaulle avait tout compris. Il avait tout compris. Il avait dit ce que réclame UKIP, que l'Angleterre ne devait pas être dans le marché commun. Il voulait une coopération d'États libres. Donc De Gaulle avait tout compris. Les frictions étaient liées au fait qu'il y avait deux partenaires fiers d'eux-mêmes, libres, donc obligatoirement. Mais c'était des frictions saines, parce que je sache, sans l'Angleterre, De Gaulle n'aurait pas pu libérer la France, et la France a été aux côtés toujours de l'Angleterre dans les moments difficiles. Donc je crois que ce sont des relations d'adulte à adulte.
Est-ce que vous pensez que sans l'Angleterre, aujourd'hui, la France ne pourra pas se libérer?
Je pense que pour libérer la France, nous aurons besoin de l'aide de tous les patriotes du monde entier. Oui. Et parce que le combat aujourd'hui, il est entre les mondialistes et les patriotes. C'est un combat terrible. Nous sommes à main nue, mais nous avons le peuple derrière nous. Eux, ils ont tous les moyens, mais ils n'ont plus la confiance des peuples. Donc je pense qu'à terme, c'est nous qui gagnerons, parce que souvenez-vous, de Gandhi à De Gaulle, ce sont toujours les peuples qui gagnent, même quand leurs leaders ou leurs libérateurs ont les mains nues et n'ont pas beaucoup de moyens. Alors tout l'enjeu, c'est de grossir, de se renforcer, de s'organiser, et c'est tout le sens de ma campagne présidentielle de 2012.
Alors, dernière question, vous allez dans quelques minutes donc donner un speech, comme on dit ici, justement en anglais.
Eh oui, c'est dur. Alors moi qui suis un francophone acharné, je le fais, j'ai hésité, mais je suis en Angleterre. Donc ça ne me choque pas de parler anglais. En revanche, je ne parlerai jamais anglais dans mon pays, en France, ou dans des autres pays étrangers, soyons clairs. Mais je trouve que là, c'est un élément de politesse, ils me reçoivent. Mon anglais ne sera pas parfait, mais c'est quand même plus simple pour qu'ils m'entendent et pour faire passer mon message. Mais encore une fois, attention, je m'exprime en anglais parce que je suis face à des Anglais. Et quand on est en France, on doit s'exprimer en français. Quand on est à Bruxelles, on doit s'exprimer en français parce que c'est la langue, aussi une des deux langues, comme aux Nations Unies. Donc je ne crois pas trahir mon esprit francophone.
Bon speech alors.
Eh bien, bon discours.
Our first speaker is a French Gaullist, a sovereignist politician, who in 2007 headed up his own political party, the Début La République, which was until then a faction within the ruling UMP. The DLR has 2 seats in the French National Assembly, and the party is the member of the EU Democrats, a Eurosceptic transnational European political party. At the same time, our next guest is also the mayor of Erez in Essonne. So please put your hands together and give a warm UKIP welcome to Nicolas Dupont Aignan, MP. Now, before we welcome from the stage, we're going to watch a short video. Thank you.
La vie chère, c'est l'euro. Les délocalisations, c'est l'euro. Le la misère et la pauvreté, c'est l'euro. Alors moi, je vais vous dire une chose très simple. Je serai candidat en 2012 à l'élection présidentielle pour en finir définitivement avec ce poison. Avec ce poison, nous allons en finir.
Dans ce bureau de l'Élysée, le drapeau européen a disparu. Oui, c'est volontaire. Bien sûr. Il disparaîtra de tous les édifices publics. Pour quelle raison? Parce que ce n'était pas le drapeau de l'Europe. C'était le drapeau d'une organisation, l'Union européenne, qui s'est emparée de l'idée européenne, qui l'a trahi, qui l'a dénaturée, qui est devenue antidémocratique, qui a bafoué le vote du peuple français en 2005, et qui servait des intérêts financiers étrangers à l'Europe. Et donc, je ne vois pas pourquoi ce drapeau, que je considère comme illégitime, pourrait flotter sur nos bâtiments. Je n'ai qu'à mettre le peuple français. Et la démocratie, elle s'exerce dans le cadre de la nation. Et un jour, je serais ravi d'avoir ici des drapeaux italiens, espagnols, de tous les pays d'Europe, pour montrer qu'on peut faire une autre Europe.
Merci de votre accueil. Thank you of your welcome. Thank you, my dear friend Nigel. First of all, I'm going to try not to massacre your language. It will be very difficult. I have a very strong French accent, but it's easier that I speak English for you to understand what I say. And I try. I want first to thank the entire team of UKIP, Steve, Laura, Francis, and all your supporters, who through their number and enthusiasm inspire us every more in our common fight for freedom and democracy in our two countries. Yes, times are hard. We all know it. We all feel it. Times are very hard indeed for our peoples. We have arrived at an historical crossroads. We are at a moment in time where there is a violent confrontation between those who for years have been pushing for the demise of nation-states and democracies, and those like Nigel and us, who are fighting for the defense of their freedom, their tradition, and the love of their country. The outcome of this struggle is approaching fast. We all feel it. It will happen soon. Today, we are already seeing the casualties of this battle in the hundreds of thousands of unemployment and destitute citizens throughout Europe. In the past, the staunchest federalists, particularly in the Soviet Union, all tried to get rid of nations by military force. Now, of course, we can see that it is through economic oppression that the European Union is trying to end what is left of national pride and democracy in our beloved country. The oligarchs of Brussels are using this economic and financial oppression against the resistance of the people of Europe. A resistance so brilliantly demonstrated by the vote no ballots to the constitutional treaty in every country that dared consult the people by referendum, including France, where I was an active participant. And we can applaud French people and Dutch people who said no to the constituency in 2005. People voted no, but after they came back with the Lisbon Treaty through the Parliament against the will of the people, French people. It's a shame what happened in 2007. It is through the economic oppression that they ought to impose their economic governance, their budgetary federalism, in the end the death of national democracy. What is worse is that this oppression is dressed up in the virtuous necessities of austerity, rigor, and savings. All around, we see the spirit of Maréchal Pétain. We are called upon to make efforts, but only to pay back the banks that have failed. We are called upon to tighten our belts, but to promote rather bureaucracy rather than the real economy. And we now have to come facing us a disaster for Europeans. Aldous Huxley said, facts do not cease to exist just because we ignore them. Well, we must have courage to face reality. By way, for example, and just in France, since the birth of the euro, we have lost more than 1 million jobs in industry. 1 million jobs in industry in 10 years. In the last 5 years, you should know that half of the automobile industry has moved overseas or to low-wage country. It is a fact. It is a fact. Our country, France, is losing all of its industrial production bit by bit. And the best is for the end. For the French taxpayer, more than 60 billion euro, 50 billion pounds sterling, not to kickstart the economy, but to save the job-destroying euro. 60 billion euro who gave for euro in Greece and in Portugal, and it's not helping the people of Greece or the people of Portugal. It's not helping them. It's just waste. It's crazy. These are the sad results from the Brussels oligarchs. And it is the same for every country in the Eurozone. But those Brussels oligarchs seem to be very proud of these apocalyptic results. The people are starving, but Barroso, you know Barroso, this strange man, which is a little crazy, or not too crazy with the rich friends. Anyway, Barroso, president of the commission, answered them in the word of Marie Antoinette, you have heard about her, let them eat cake. Why this determination? Because the euro is for them the ideal tool for supremacy, power, anti-democratic. And President Sarkozy gave it away when he said, the euro is not an economic issue, it's an issue of identity. We discovered it was not an economic issue, of course. Issue of identity. What does it mean? What does it mean? It means that it is the way of imposing federalism, the way of destroying the democracy, the way of keeping power to Brussels. The euro, a single currency that the Brits wisely rejected, a single currency that Nigel so brilliantly put in a coffin and buried in front of the camera. It was a great job you did. But, by the way, I have heard, Nigel, that David Cameron your Prime Minister has called for the euro to descend. Please reassure me, it is English you want? But if you want really euro, we can give it to you. We can. We keep franc, and you give euro. But I don't think it's a good deal for you. But if David Cameron wants, really I can give it euro. Give him euro. Sorry, my English. Anyway, my dear friend, your rejection of a single currency is proof that on this side of the channel there is still a fighting spirit alive and kicking. This refusal gives me the signal that people will not quit fighting when faced with a kind of tyranny and dictatorship, because it is dictatorship. You have to say to people, it's not banal, don't understand. And if the Brits are known for their legendary fighting spirit, the French are equally known for their French flair. And they demonstrated it in massively rejecting the treaty establishing a constitution for Europe. So yes, dear friend, you are not alone, we are not alone. In fact, many of us in France are refusing to take it lying down in front of an elite which is economically totally incompetent. Totally incompetent. Which is now, since the Lisbon Treaty in 2007, 2 years after the referendum, politically illegitimate and morally corrupt. I must tell you, this revolt is very strong in our country, but the press doesn't speak about it too much, but it's very, very strong in our country. And I will take to the votes for the 2012 presidential election to express this strong anger and this will to change France, to liberate France. Nigel, you help us with your fight here. I want to tell to you, Nigel, and all supporters of your party, that many of us in France, millions of persons, follow your activities, particularly on the internet. Your message, which is both flamboyant and intuitive, touches the heart of many French people. It's true. It's very important. In a way, it's not the first time that an Englishman is helping to free France from chains. Nigel was right when he said this morning, it's not only to criticize the European structures and we are here. It's not only that. It's much more important. What has failed, it's much more important, sorry. We are here together in each country to propose a positive alternative for France, for Britain, for Deutschland, for Finland, all these countries. French people is waiting for an alternative. English people is waiting for an alternative. And United Kingdom and France are now, I'm sure, united in the spirit, in a great common cause, the fight of our freedom. This fight, Nigel, I promise you, we will win on both sides of the channels. Never in our story has dictatorship succeeded for any length of time when faced by people as proud as the French people or the English people. I am sure of that. The only problem is that how long it will last. Timo this morning said that the Soviet Union lasts 74 years. I should say, Nigel, it is a little too long for me. And I would like really that French people and English people wake up rapidly, early.
I am sure we can do it, I am sure. We need only to speak to the people. We need to see the facts. And I'm sure that today, now, more and more, both peoples are going to understand what happened. And that's why I like to invite you, Nigel, to our national conference in Paris, where we will launch in January the presidential campaign. Beyond our difference, British, French, we all share the same ideals. We all want a just and fair state, which governs for the welfare of its citizens in accordance with its own tradition, and which can stand up to the rest of the world with confidence and pride. That's our aim. I will be on time. So I promise you that they will be erased from history, and our fight for liberty will triumph. And in this fight for liberty, you will always be able to count on me, and very soon you will be able to count on every Frenchman and French woman. Vive la France, vive la République, vive l'Angleterre et ces deux pays libres.
Merci beaucoup, Nicolas. Le cours très intéressant. As far as it goes. Right, that was very exciting. So I'm now going to introduce a panel of economists to you. And Wayne Tower will be chairing this session. Our first panellist is our very own Godfrey Bloom MEP. God has spent 35 years working in the city.
So Nigel Farage, we're here at your convention in Eastbourne. Why did you do a convention so far away from London?
Well, actually, last year we were in Devon. The year before we were up near Manchester. So this is actually closer to London than we have been. We take it round the country, and it gives our members who live in different areas a chance to come. It was the turn of the South East this year. We've chosen Eastbourne. I'm pleased we have. I think it's the nicest English seaside town in the country. And the sun's shining, so it's not bad.
So are you happy so far with the convention, with your different guests and different...
Yeah, I mean, there's very much a theme to this conference, and it is that whilst UKIP itself is building and growing, and our arguments, which were once derided as being eccentric and odd, are now very much at the centre of national debate and very much mainstream arguments. I think showing our people that it isn't just happening on our island, that it's happening really right across Northern Europe is very, very interesting. So we've got French guests, Dutch guests, Finnish guests, and it's funny, isn't it? We all grew up with Europe being divided east to west with the Berlin Wall. Europe is now divided north to south. And the north of Europe, there are movements that believe in national democracy and freedom and controlling our borders that are now gaining ground, and gaining very fast indeed.
So regarding Nicolas Dupont-Aignan, why did you invite him rather than Marine Le Pen? Because Front National is a stronger party in
yes,
France?
I mean, I'm aware of that. I mean, we like Nicolas Dupont-Aignan. We like the agenda that he's standing for and campaigning on. I think you call it the souverainiste agenda, and we're fond of that, and we think he's a very good operator. And in fact, he spoke in the hall today in English, and he did so with great charm. And with great humour as well, which was important. As far as the Front National is concerned, we have never been a party that's been a fan of the Front National. We don't like what the Front National stand for, and we feel there is a degree of anti-Semitism, Holocaust denial even, that exists within that party that we find pretty repulsive. I have to say that Marine Le Pen appears to be different. And I think she's trying to change the Front National. But I think...
Her father is still there.
Her father is very much still there. And I think that for her to turn around a party that has got that much baggage is going to be a very difficult thing to do.
Is it the first time you invite foreign guests?
No, we have had the odd one over the years.
But to have three countries represented is something we've never attempted to do before. And I think, I think we all draw strength from the fact that there are lots of people out there feeling as we feel. Lots of people who've recognised that this model for our shared continent of Europe is completely wrong.
And so you invited the representative of the PVV, and last time when you came over to France, I interviewed you, and you said that with the Geerwilders there was great links, but also he was a controversialist, you said.
Well, he is a controversialist, I mean, there's not much doubting that, and I have reservations about one or two things on his domestic platform. I do have reservations about that, but on the shared theme of national sovereignty, the Euro crisis, the European Union, we have very much in common.
And immigration?
Yes, to a degree. To a degree. I mean, I think that controlling borders and not allowing the host culture of your capital city to become something entirely different, I think that's quite important. Where I take some issue with him is he talks about free speech and the importance of free speech. Well, I agree with that. But he then in the next sentence says he would ban the Quran, and that strikes me that there's a bit of a logical inconsistency there. But as I say, on the European question, he's doing great work in the Netherlands.
And I think he came back to the sentence saying that if he wasn't allowed to speak the way he speaks, then we should ban the Quran as well.
Yeah, well, that's not the way that I would do things. Right. But anyway, it takes all the... And don't forget, there are different cultures in each of these different countries, and things that we may find acceptable, you in France may find unacceptable, and we have to recognise that.
Sure. Now, maybe last question about what happened on the 3rd of September. Maybe you heard the meeting public meeting between Geerwilders, Oscar Freisinger, and René Stadtgewitz of the Die Vrijheid, so the Free Party. Yeah. What do you think of this meeting, which is quite close to what you're trying to do here?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think with all these things, as I've mentioned earlier, with cultural differences, you have to make assessments of whether parties are good guys or bad guys, and it's not always a very easy thing to do. But I mean, certainly, I've met the Austrians. I don't know this new German party as yet. But no, I think the principle...
You're open to the discussion?
Come on, whatever we think about Brussels and the centralisation of power in Brussels, we do all want to be friends with each other. We do all want to trade with each other. And it's actually beholden upon all of us that are involved in this to present to the European peoples an alternative model. We've got to show people that once we've got rid of Van Rompuy and all these awful people in Brussels, that we do actually have a plan for how we're going to coexist in the future. So yes, I welcome all these ideas.
Do you plan on meeting, you said, with Oscar Freisinger? Have you met him yet?
I've met some of his colleagues. I've been to Basel and met some of his colleagues, yeah.
Okay. One last question, because it reminds me that there was some sort of coalition between one member of UKIP and other parties which are maybe more extremist than the ones that are here. Are you supporting this? I can't remember the member of UKIP.
Yeah, one member joined a European political party as an experiment to see whether it worked. He said he couldn't care less who he was in with. He wanted to find out how the system worked. I'm not going to bully my members and tell them what they should and should not do. But as a party, there are people in that particular coalition that I would not support being in with.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Farage, for your time.
Okay, thank you very much.